cannot be won. The war will go on. Peace in the world. The war will go on. We need a spiritual revolution. The war will go on. Lord, put your hand, save the children. The war will go on. Man fighting against man. The war will go on. It cannot be won. The war will go on. It cannot be won. The war will go on. It cannot be won. The war will go on. It cannot be won. The war will go on.
Lord, I bow before your throne. To you I give glory and thanks alone. Hey, 'cause you are the supreme, the creator, the lion of the tribe of Judah. I now invoke your gracious attention. So please consider my meditation. I bring before you some covetous politicians, for you to change them with your sweet salvation. You see, Lord, they're waiting for next election, only to get rich, no other intention. But Lord, I declare and I decree that you take the minds of taxpayers' money, 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 money. Some of them like money. They only see in money. Lord, help me pray for them. Help me. Help me pray for them.
WinFM provides an avenue for responsible, open, public discourse on issues of public concern without being controlled by any political party, organization, or individual. Our aim is to provide free expression within the law by civil society, private individuals, and political parties in opposition as well as in government. Although WinFM recognizes and holds dearly the right to free speech, we also hold dearly the concomitant right for a person to maintain his or her reputation. The comments, views, and opinions expressed by the hosts, presenters, and other participants by way of radio or social media with respect to this program are solely their opinion and do not reflect the opinions of WinFM 98.9 or its operating company staff, directors, or other affiliates.
Good afternoon and welcome to this special edition of The Operating Room. I'm your host, Dwyer Astaphan, and I have with me Sam Condor. We've done a couple of programs together, and we are part and parcel of the public discussion of issues of national importance. Of course, right now we are at a very high point in the national discussion, although a lot of what is being discussed is personal and abusive and really obnoxious and not on the issues. But we are not going to get into that aspect of it because we don't think it gets us anywhere. It doesn't certainly doesn't elevate anybody, and it indicates very clearly that those who are using the obnoxious and personal abusive language cannot stand up and argue on the issues. So that there is a concession right there. So we're not going to take on those who are calling us names and playing videos and audios from the past when we said things. What we said, we stand by. Just like what we say now, we stand by. And Sam said something, I forgot his quote at the end of the program. No, it was on another radio station last Friday. But basically what he said is that if you see things changing around you and you remain the same, then something is wrong with you.
Let me quote it for you.
Yes, do that for us.
We were saying it was Sunday night.
Sunday?
Yeah, it was.
That's right, right, yeah.
And Gian was saying that nothing wrong with changing your mind. You know, that is what life is about. And I was reminding her of a a quote from a renowned Methodist minister, which says, the world belongs to the man, and I added woman, man or woman, who is wise enough to change his or her mind in the presence of new facts.
Yes, and
Yeah.
you find many people have made a similar comment in different ways, meaning the same thing.
Yep.
I speak about George Bernard Shaw, the British playwright and social commentator, who was a great fan of the Russian Revolution. And he went to Russia right after the revolution, just over 100 years ago. And he enjoyed what he saw. He appreciated it. And he wrote very positively about it in the British media. And then he went back 5 years later and he came back and wrote very negative things about the Russian Revolution. And the people asked him, well, what happened to you? You changed? He said, no, Russia changed. I am just reflecting what happens out there, what happened out there. And I have been constant, certainly.
Absolutely.
Perhaps
Absolutely.
more publicly vocal than you over the years, but we know each other and we know what we have been doing.
And what we stand for.
And we're not going to spend any time defending our stand for principle.
Not at all.
Nobody's going to waste our time with that, so
Not
we're going to
at
move
all.
on
Yeah, not
with
at
the
all.
issues. Sam, I have been noticing through people and through myself, because I pass certain places and look, like nearby here in Cathy Alley, you find people, and in the area, people coming around and hanging around that you don't see in 3, 4, 5 years. It's because it's election time.
Yeah.
And not just here, but other parts where of less economically developed areas. Call it the ghetto, because that's the term the people use. And they're coming with building materials. I know a young man who got building materials 2 days ago. Today's what, Thursday? 3 days ago. 3 days ago. Well, that's 4 days before the election. It's not now he needed the materials, but he's getting them 4 days before the election. Offers of money. Letters saying you're getting a piece of land. You know that how that game can work. And all types of inducements. Now, when you're coming with all of these inducements, it must suggest that you have not performed to the level sufficient to gain the confidence that you have the people's support. That's number one. And number two, you don't have the respect for them to exercise their intellects and their consciences to make an enlightened determination. So you want, having suppressed them, again I will use the example, the knee in the throat, like how they killed the man in America, and there's so much protest going on about it. Sometimes you can get conditioned to have a man's knee in your throat, and you become so accustomed to it, not being able to breathe properly, that when he takes off his knee, maybe because he's cramping a little bit, you think it's to do yourself a favor, so you're thankful to him. So you say, thank you. Then the knee goes back in your throat. That is what happens in this once in every 5-year cycle. Or you give maybe every month or every 2 months a little something to keep people dependent and keep them from expressing and fulfilling the talents that the Lord has given to them. And this is one of the things that caused us to try to create a new political culture.
Absolutely.
And a new governance culture in the country.
Absolutely.
What has happened? It has gotten worse. So they're in Cathy Alley and in Irish Town and in Upper Market Street and in New Road and in Pine Gardens and all over the country, Cayon and so. Money, lumber, letters for land and so forth. So that doesn't sound to me like...
Let me tell you, Dwyer, you probably didn't hear Zico yesterday afternoon.
I did not.
But let me tell you how Zico analyzed this. Zico said, people coming around now, you know, with a transaction giving you $500 or whatever it is, and they deliver that to you, and you're supposed to deliver your vote to them. He said, and after that, people are surprised that after the election, the politician passed the street until the next election come. He said that was a transaction which was completed. I give you $500 and you give me your vote, and that's it. It has nothing to do with anything else. That's a transaction that was completed. And so they're waiting now for the next election to come and they make another transaction. He said we have to move away from that. Voting must not be transactional. It must be an effort to put in place an administration, a government that is going to look after your aims and aspirations as a people, to make our country a better place, to make our citizens better citizens, so that we could fulfill our potential. That is what election was supposed to be. But if people, think that it is transactional, you come and you give me $5 a vote, well, that is what will happen, and we will get nowhere.
No, and that's a good point. It's rather than transactional. You see, to the politician, it's transactional.
Yeah.
To the citizen,
Yeah.
who is involved in what the politician thinks is a transaction, to the citizen is aspirational, because he or she is aspiring to an ongoing relationship where he or she and his family can have a better life. But it doesn't happen. That is why you don't see them in these areas frequently. They come when it suits them. It's like the guy, as I said, on the radio on Tuesday night, the guy telling the young lady in number 2 who says she's going to vote for Marcella. I think I said it on the radio the other night.
Yeah, Tuesday
Who is
night.
going to vote for Marcella? The guy telling her, and he's from number 7, and he will vote for Timothy. He's telling her, if you cannot vote for Jonelle, well, for my sake, for his sake, she mustn't vote at all. So it's strictly, cold-bloodedly, self-servingly transactional, and they don't care how they abuse and they use and they take advantage. And if you're telling somebody not to vote because they're not going to vote for the candidate of your choice, and you are in a position where you could apply pressure on them in terms of job and other opportunities, that is almost tantamount to pre-1952 taking away their vote from them,
Yeah.
You're taking away their vote from them
Absolutely.
because they're living in fear that you are in a position where you could leverage their lives for the better or for the worse. And that's where your aspirations come in. You're looking for the better. But you're afraid, and there's a lot of fear. That's why you don't have a lot of people, even pastors and so in this country, not speaking out. There's a lot of fear. So it's
There's
aspirational for the little man, and he keeps getting fooled. And I hope, well, the last election, we hoped was a step in the right direction, and it was.
I believe that, sincerely
and
believe that.
nobody like us who say we are going to support the Labour Party. It's not a matter of going back. We are going forward with what we have and making a choice between two options to go forward with what we have, to pick up the pieces and go forward with what we have. And we just believe that the Labour Party has a better package in terms of candidates, a better package in terms of its the undertakings that it is put in its manifesto and its this document here, the stimulus package and so forth. And you listen to one side, you get that. You listen to the other, you get cussing. You get cussing.
You see, Dwyer, I really feel a little bit insulted. Not angry, not bitter, but a little bit insulted that after the last election 5 years ago, and we took the stand that we took, trying to put our country on the right track, to adhere to the rule of law, the constitutional provisions, the good governance, and really Dwyer made a significant movement from an organization and party that I knew and loved and grew up in, to say, well, boy, what's happening was not what should be happening. This is not the Labour Party that I joined, and this was not what we thought was happening good. And join with other forces. I don't know what it is people thought we were doing, that when we move away from the Labour Party and say, we are going to join up with our forces to make life better, and you come to a situation where it's worse. You're not getting what you thought you were getting. And they want to criticize you and ridicule you for taking the same principled position. I mean, I feel a little bit insulted.
Well, you see, and here's the problem. And I don't feel insulted. I feel that it is a sad thing that people's ability to think things through for themselves, that is why we say here, think for yourself. People's ability to think through for themselves is suppressed, so that they call you a flip-flop and they call you whatever. But again, those people can do better, and our aspiration and hope and efforts are geared in our own little way to the day which we hope will come and soon in our lifetime, when they will think for themselves and realize that when you stand on principle, things around you may change.
But the principles don't change.
It's like a ship that sets sail from here to Southampton in England. Let us look at Southampton in England. They set a sail, a thing, and they go, and they follow their course. They may get into rough weather. They may get into calm weather. They have to navigate through it. But they are on their course to Southampton. So they may have to go here and go here. I remember flying from
Don't
London
worry, the journey, the destination.
Exactly. And life is not a straight line journey.
No.
Life is not a straight line journey. So I wouldn't even bother waste time on that. One of the things that I want to touch early before we get into other stuff, Sam, is there's a lot of stuff going on, and with social media, it is a ripe kind of setting for all kind of fear-mongering and negative stuff to come up. This morning, for example, somebody sent me something, said the factory center full of Spanish-speaking people.
I heard that.
I drove up there.
Nobody there.
We place bar up. If they're there, all of them hide it and I don't see that you could have that bunch of people up there and some of them not sitting on the outside chatting and regaling and so. The place bar up. You hear about some 487 new voters just gone on the list for Central Bastia. These are designed by the incumbents.
For distractions.
Not just distraction, but to intimidate Labour voters to say, well, we cannot beat them. We're in a state of emergency.
I agree.
They have the police. They have the army. They may have the RAS to demoralize you and say,
psychological.
I ain't going out to vote because they win. Let me tell you, the voters out there, 90% of what you're seeing out there, this fear-mongering and hysteria-mongering, is just that. Do not be deterred and distracted from carrying out your mission to exercise your franchise for whoever you want to exercise your franchise for. And remember, you might see Dwyer Astaphan, when not in this election, or Sam Condor's name on a ballot. But you're voting not for Sam or for Dwyer. You're voting for your country and yourself. That is why it is important to look at the manifestos, get behind the facade, get behind the BS, get behind the hype, and see the facts and the truth and make your decision accordingly. And hopefully we'll have some time to discuss some of the things that we've seen in the Labour Party manifesto. So all of these things, I keep telling people, I spend too much time telling people, listen, don't bother with that. That's nonsense. Don't take on that. And don't spread it either. Because you're just spreading the anxiety and you're spreading the distrust and the fear and the demoralization. You don't want that.
Like I tell people, all we need to do is to be focused, be vigilant, and be concentrated about what it is your intention, what you want to do. And nothing less, nothing more. And you go observant, observe what is happening around you, report any irregularities as soon as you can to the appropriate authorities, and your job is finished. You go and you vote on election day. And it's easy.
Now, what I would like us to do, if you want to do this format, if not, tell me.
No,
I
free do.
Let us look at each of the constituencies, starting at one.
Yeah, that's fine.
But before we do that, let me tell you of something that I was told. There's a certain man who has made a lot of quick money in this country through kickbacks. The kickbacks are paid into a banking drop box situation. Like you drop money in your overnight bag, you do it electronically and so forth. So the kickback goes to the bank in Miami. And over a fairly short period of time, an enormous amount of money has accumulated to that account. The information that we are getting is that the U.S. Treasury Department, the same FinCEN, and the U.S. State Department are expressing some interest in, you see the word you used earlier, transactional, in those transactions and in the persons involved in those transactions. I cannot and I will not say any more today, and this is not meant to sensationalize anything, because when I come here and I say things, nobody over all of these years that I've been here has been able to factually refute what I've put forward here as fact. Nobody has done it. Not one has done it. And I don't say that out of any immodesty. I'm just telling you, when I come and tell you something, it's not to be frivolous or not to be deceptive. It is to caution you that without a knowledge, you could end up suffering, because when things like this happen, the people suffer. The operational costs go up, and the operational costs, you as a former businessman will know, are always carried forward to the customer, to the consumer. In running a country, if government's costs are higher,
Go to the taxpayers.
they have to go to the taxpayers. If the government's costs are higher because of corruption, it goes to the taxpayers. And remember, the poor people suffer worse, because the big man who is building the 500-room hotel going to get a long tax holiday. They're going to bring in cars and all kind of things duty-free. The big businesses who could afford the top accounting firms and the top lawyers,
They find a way of
they find a way to dance.
Yeah.
The small man can't dance around nothing, can't dance around nothing. They cannot dance around anything. And it's kind of,
That is
the
why
circle of justice has come full now, because the Labour Party, which introduced the VAT in 2011 or thereabouts, is the one who's saying they're now going to reduce the VAT, and not only reduce it, but change the calculation of the VAT. So more money will be left in the poor people's hand. And increased corruption or corruption deprives the government, first of all, as I've given this example, if it costs you $800 million a year to run the country, and 30% of that corruption is corruption because of corruption, kickbacks and whatever, then that's 240 million. It means you could have run the country on 560 million. And if you're saving $240 million a year in the running of this country, that money stays in the hands of the people, and they become better off and more independent. And you have to ask the question is, do corrupt leaders, whether in the private or public sector, want the small man to be elevated and become a big man? Or he wants to keep him down? Because the corruption certainly keeps the small man down. Don't mind, he might get some money and buy a backhoe or a truck.
Where the definition of a corruption is using your public office for private gain. It benefits the person in public office who's doing the corruption. That is the definition, basic, simple definition of corruption.
Well, the fellow who may have the backhoe, and I'm not speaking in specifics, or a little trucking business, or a little tent rental business, or whatever, who is getting the business out of the corrupt situation, he thinks he's benefiting, and he might be benefiting financially. But he's part and parcel of hurting the whole country, including himself.
That's right.
Because if he
That's
had
the
more
point.
money in his hand
That's the
from the
point.
reduced corruption,
That is
he
the
could
point.
expand his business bigger.
That is the
He
point.
don't have to pay anybody for anything.
Yeah.
So, this drop back things with the money in the banks in Miami, we are going to hear about it in time to come. We are going to hear about it. We are going to hear about it. Now, all of us are sinners. All of us are sinners. All of us go either before the court are before the court of public opinion, and all of us will go before the heavenly court.
Judgment.
All of us will go before the heavenly court.
The judgment.
But we need to be very
Final
careful.
judgment.
I'm also understanding, well, we'll discuss that maybe later on. But let's go to the constituencies.
Good.
Start out in number one.
Number one, yeah.
You have Ian Libud, Patches Libud, running against Jeffrey Hanley.
yeah.
I'll
Okay.
take it over to you.
Jeffrey Hanley is, in my view, a youngster who has prepared himself for a time as this. Jeffrey whole life, his development, he has been a community man. He has been a guy who's grounded and grew up around the Labour Party, and basically has done a lot of work in community development. He has been in a number of youth organizations, the Scouts and other youth organizations. And so Jeffrey, in my view, is very well prepared for a time such as this. He has prepared himself, and he's now really offering himself to serve his constituency and his country. And I think he's well prepared to do that. So I really feel confident about Jeffrey's own performance and contribution. Jeffrey has served in the civil service as a youth officer, director of youth. He's been a teacher, principal of Bounty Welch, and people have always seen the innovations and the creativity. I mean, he in a short year or so at Bounty Welch turned Bounty Welch into a model primary school. So I mean, I had the privilege of working with him as in Ministry of Youth and so on. And Jeffrey's work ethic, his commitment, his dedication to work and the upliftment of young people in his country is exemplary. And so I give Jeffrey high marks for doing what he has done in the past. Oh, in fact, he went into the STEP program. And I just want to mention, we have heard a lot of things about his dealing in the STEP, but we haven't seen any evidence. We have heard talk, and you really can't go and talk. But for what he has done in terms of his contribution to all areas of government, to all areas of the civil service that he has served, he has done extremely well. And I think Jeffrey is well qualified, capable, and able to make a contribution to the country as we go forward.
Well, he's one of several young candidates
Yep.
in the election. But I think more than any other candidate in the election, he epitomizes youth. I'll tell you why. The 25 most outstanding youths. That's his creation. I think he's one of the founders or creators of Sniper, isn't he?
I was in the ministry, Dwyer, when that started. The 25 most remarkable. I mean, the whole concept was developed when I was the Minister of Youth Affairs, and Jeffrey was the mastermind. He was the youth parliamentarian.
Correct.
Jeffrey was the
Sniper.
Yeah.
And there are a number of things. You see, and we're not bad-mouthing anybody here.
No.
We're telling you, and we'll speak about the other, his opponent. So many things to do with you, and he has been a member of a lot of youth organizations.
That's what I'm saying, the Scouts.
He's been in the community, and not just youth, but old people going and and we know
Jeffrey is a community man.
he's a community man.
Yeah, so nobody could dispute that.
No, here's
nobody
the deal.
at all could dispute
Here
that.
is the deal. The 44th President of the United States, he was ridiculed by his opponents. You know what they used to call him? A community worker.
Okay.
Or Barack Obama. A community worker. Well, what more noble work can you do than serving a community? And but when you think of the things that this fella has done, I mean, and his works, again, under your ministry and under other people's guidance in the ministry, have continued. The Sniper, the 25 outstanding youths, and a lot of these groups, the things he did at Bounty Welch, which was basically left there to, and he was, of course, sent into the wilderness, which is a practice that must stop too. You know, teachers must be properly positioned.
But I don't understand what people mean when they say you're just a community worker. You know, that is how that's the composition of the nation. You know, a nation is the collection of communities. A community is the collection of families. And so, I mean, that's where you have to start. You don't start by serving your nation. You start by serving your family, and as a family, you start by next to your community, and then you go up to the nation. Community, families make up communities, and communities make up the nation. So that's where you start. I don't understand what people mean by you're just a community worker.
Well, the Americans were using that because they wanted to degrade and disrespect Obama.
No, it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense.
You know, but it's a noble calling, and
absolutely.
people who do that work clearly are not money hawks.
No,
because no money is in it.
No money in community development.
No money in it. You know.
But that is how you build your nation, through community development.
The community worker is somebody whose priority is the development of human capital.
Absolutely.
Not cash in your pocket. Although it is important, part of community development is helping people to position themselves, to take care of themselves and their families financially, economically, and otherwise. But the community worker himself or herself is not a money hawk. So there's no questioning the guy's intellectual ability. There's no questioning his energy.
Yes, absolutely.
There's no questioning his creativity.
His passion.
His passion and commitment. And he's the right age. How old is Jeffrey?
I'm not sure.
Now, there's no wrong age, because Churchill was called in by the British electorate to lead the country during the war. And right after the war, they dropped Churchill. He must have been 300 or 400 years old when they elected him. And that's, of course, that's an exaggeration. Now, the people in the so-called ghetto must understand that a community developer, a community worker, and I saw Jeffrey's little community, his constituency manifesto as well. A community developer makes life better for them, financially, economically, and socially. Housing conditions, health conditions, all of these things. And what they have had for the last 5 years is nothing near to somebody who is interested in community development. Sidewalks. I mean, he loved a sidewalk. He would build a sidewalk on top of Monkey Hill if he get a chance. And maybe he knows why. Because I've seen some sidewalks in some places that God knows don't require sidewalks. Nothing is wrong with a grass verge for people to walk on in some areas. Some areas where people hardly ever walk. Because remember, the more concrete you put on the surface of the land, the less the land has to breathe out through there, then the less water absorption in times of heavy rain. And I will humbly predict that with all of these sidewalks they're building, all like Upkit Stoddards and so, when you see the heavy rains come, we may have some increased flooding problems in this area where we are, and in the same Newtown area, which he's representing, the same Cathy Alley and all of these areas, and Herbert Street and down below. So the attitude to the community is like A and Z, like the North Pole and the South Pole. One is a real community man, and the other man is just has this arrogant kind of attitude towards community. But in terms of his performance over the years, other than this antipathy and arrogance and looking down on people, including his own cabinet colleagues, including the PAM supporters, because his boards, Patches, his boards are yellow, but his shorts are orange. You notice? The boards are yellow.
No.
He's supposed to be running on a PAM ticket, but the shorts are orange.
It has been clear right from the beginning, Dwyer, that Patches was never a PAM candidate.
And the PAM people over the last 5 years in East Bastia, if they want to be honest with themselves, they will know that he has not been faithful to their cause. It was convenient, and
Convenience.
he wanted to
Pure
run for
convenience.
PLP,
Yeah.
and Tim wanted him to run for PLP.
He was a member of PLP, Dwyer.
He was a member of
He was-
PLP. He may still be, I don't know.
No,
I don't know, because you and I are out of that.
That is well known. That's well established. There's no secret about
But
that.
to me, there
Pam
is-
knows that. PLP knows that. Everybody, the whole country knows that.
There's a visible undermining of this orange and yellow. Now they're supposed to be part of Team Unity, which we know, because we've been there, is not a team and is not united.
Right.
But he is clearly sending a signal. So
Yeah.
the PAM people in East Bastia cannot really identify with him because it's a game that is being played. His colleagues realize he doesn't respect them or the party
No.
because he does pretty much as he pleases, which makes him a bit of a loose cannon. And I heard him announce something in Parliament one day, that a deal had been struck by the government. And I found out from a good source, I was told by a very reliable source, that the matter had not even reached cabinet. And he was announcing it in Parliament. Now, there are some other things. Some of these projects that Patches has been involved in. The Wellington Road apartments. I see people up there on the scaffold, and I drove around the line yesterday. If you see the amount of things going on, sidewalk all over the place and so, a lot of things going on. It's election time. And money back in. Money is back in. Money is back in. It's election time. And this is why you see, when I look back on the years, we had our problems, but some of the things we did, especially in our first 2 terms. You remember those 132 houses we built in 120 days
Yep.
for Carifesta?
Yep.
132 houses in 120 days.
Those are model communities now.
Have
Dwyer.
they built 132 houses in 5 years?
No. Model communities.
Maybe that amount, maybe a little bit more. The Wellington Road apartments, which are, to me, traps, because not enough window for light and ventilation on the side, and no back stairs,
Shouldn't
especially
be
the
building
second
those things
floor.
in
So
time like these.
while it is necessary to provide housing, and while the buildings may look attractive, the functionality and the safety and the risk factor will tell you that somebody dropped the ball, because I'm sure his house has safety exits in it. I'm sure of that.
We really could have done a lot better, Dwyer, in 21st century in building those.
Now, the
those
West
housing.
Bus Terminal down there,
Yeah.
which was to be finished since December, is still not finished. And there is no sidewalk at the back of the bus stand for people to walk along. So if you're going either westerly or easterly on the southern side of Bay Road by there, you're going to have to walk in the road. Again, somebody dropped the ball. Again, instead of being done in December, 6 months later, it is still not finished. It may not be finished for several months, and it has cost overruns. The Wellington Road project, we are told, cost overruns. The Old Road Bay project, I drove there yesterday, I'm not an engineer, but you get a vibe that something fundamental is not right there. Cost overruns. The new pier, in which they got financing from the National Bank,
That's a major issue. That's
Social
not gonna go
Security,
with this
SIDF, and TDC. Already, matters have gone to arbitration because they found out that the water by the front of the pier wasn't deep enough. That's the first thing you have to find out. If you can jump off a cliff, you have to know how deep the water is. Suppose it's only 2 feet, and you take a header, you break your neck and you're dead. The first thing became the last. And in their hurry to put ships on it, to give the impression that here we are ready, don't mind those detractors, they might put ships on the dock too soon, because maybe the concrete would not have settled. And you put heavy ships that will bang against a structure like that. That in itself could have caused the cracks as well. Again, bad management, bad administration, incompetence, the rush, the desperation, and the arrogance. And now, he said there are no cracks. I'm told he said there are no cracks. Well, why doesn't he invite the nation out there with cameras? Are not the nation 2 or 3 professional journalists with some, and let them look and let him show them that no cracks out there. Again, by the time they finish with that, instead of it costing 48 million US dollars, it could end up costing 70 or 80 million US dollars whenever that becomes a reality. So these projects, not well thought out, not well run, cost overruns, falling out. The new tarmac at the airport, that's part of the money they borrow from Social Security, $81 million.
Without any
Government guarantee.
Yeah.
Without any, because the government doesn't want the debt to appear on its books.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to say the national debt gone up. They don't care if they bankrupt Social Security.
Yeah.
Because again, that's poor people.
Yeah.
By the time they're done, they don't need no Social Security. They're getting the Social Security now. When you wait for your Social Security, you ain't gonna get none if it continues like this. $81 million borrowed, not just for the tarmac, but to do other things, including some, to support payroll. If you are borrowing money to pay your staff, you're in trouble.
That's right.
And under his leadership, because he says he is everything at the port, he's the human resource manager, he's the minister, he's everything. They must do what he says. Under his leadership, the port has run from being buoyant financially to increasing the staff by 50%, and I'm not blaming the staff. Everybody has to get a job.
Everybody would like to get a
Everybody
job.
needs a job.
That's right.
And he has run it into serious, serious debt. And if the port owes a debt, the government owes a debt, but they don't want it on the central government accounting. Again, what you call bowling googlies, back of the hand kind of thing, to try to fool off people with surpluses and all kind of thing like that, and lower debt rates and so forth. He formed a company August the 31st, 2016.
A major issue, Dwyer.
The Chamber of Commerce.
A major
The
issue.
Chamber of Commerce wrote a letter.
A major issue, Dwyer.
The Chamber of Commerce wrote a letter
That is a
to the
major
Prime
issue.
Minister on January 10, 2017, signed by Jose Rosa, who was then the president. And Timothy Harris replied to them on 3 days later and basically blew them off.
Yeah.
Basically blew them off. He said he can assure the chamber that no minister of this unity government has engaged or will be permitted to engage in any business, profession or occupation which creates a conflict of interest or other breach of the duties pursuant to an oath of office. That's the second to last paragraph in Timothy's letter to the Chamber of Commerce, letter of January 13, 2017. Let me reread that paragraph. This is to the chamber.
Yep.
I can assure the chamber, and I want the people out there to listen and see if what he was assuring the chamber is the truth. Then or now, I can assure the chamber that no minister of this unity government has engaged or will be permitted to engage in any business, profession or occupation which creates a conflict of interest or other breach of duties pursuant to an oath of office. When you're in public office and you take an oath, you're not supposed to compete with people in the private sector, you know. It doesn't mean you can't have shares in TDC or shares in a business. And you put it in a blind trust and the business is run and you don't know because you have the interest in it, but you don't have the day-to-day involvement, so you can't be involved. You're going to tell me that these words are true?
No, that can't be true. And the country knows they're not true. So I don't know why anybody would write a letter like that.
So if the Prime Minister, Timothy Harris, will go on the record with this in a letter to the Chamber of Industry and Commerce,
For something that is so patently obvious.
what else
Yeah.
has he done that you can trust?
Yeah.
What else has he done that you can trust? The fact that there has been no major investment in this country. Here you have the CBI, which we don't know anything about, because that's happening in the dark of night.
Yeah.
In the dark of night.
Since 2014, we haven't had any public any audited accounts for
Well,
you.
they talk about the Ernst and Young. You haven't heard anything. Other than the CBI money is coming in, and we don't know how much. And he keeps saying, when this project can open and when that project can open. It almost sounds foolish now. He said this one was going to open in December. In June, he said nothing happened. In December, nothing happened. Foolishness. So, where is the public? Where is the investment? And the other night when we were here, when I told you and the listeners about the hotel developers,
Yep, the two hotels.
one of them sent me a WhatsApp, one of the developers, and I showed it to you. They will bring the development here under a different government, not under this one, because they've been taken through the ropes with him. So, I think if you weigh these two in the balance, it's not a difficult decision to make.
At all.
And those who believe they're getting something today because of patches as a minister, understand you can get something better every day with a better person representing you, not just in the constituency, but in the ministry. Let's go to number 2, Marcella and Janelle.
Let's go to number 8, and then we come back to number 2,
Okay.
and then we go to. We
I want
do
to
it
see
that
if
way.
we could finish them off by 3
Yeah,
o'clock.
yeah. So let's. I rather going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 8.
Okay, go
2,
ahead.
yeah, because I want to make a point that I made to a guy the other day, who was saying people keep saying that.
Oh, by the way, and they wanted the thing for the tarmac because they wanted the mobilization money up front before the election. And 2 directors of the port were against it. They said, let us wait till the election is done. What's this unholy haste? One of the directors
Yeah.
handed in his ID cards yesterday at the port.
Yeah. And Dwyer, that is something that we have to look at. The amount of people who have left this administration in 5 years. You know, we're talking about people like the chair of the
And how many
Social Security
PSs has Patches sent home?
Board.
Because we could spend the whole day on that, you
I'm
know.
telling you.
But we can't.
We can't. We don't have the time. So if we go to 8, and I want to go to 8 for this particular purpose, because people are saying, you know, they're making this election about Douglas. This election is not about Douglas. This election is about the future.
It is.
Douglas is in the past. And I'm going to people have been saying, you know, Drew is a good guy. He's a nice guy and so on. But I'm not going to vote for him because he worked with Douglas. But let me tell you something.
But you're going to vote for Hamilton, who is with him.
Yeah.
Who Alexis Nisbet says is 10 times worse than Douglas.
But more than that, Dwyer, you're not going to vote for a fellow like Drew, who has the potential to become the prime minister,
Oh, of course.
to become the leader of the Labour
country.
Party. And you're putting him against, you'll vote for Hamilton instead of him.
Who will not run again?
Who will not run again? Has been. Who really win, lose, or draw his last election. Who people are saying who should not even run in this election. And you're saying that you can't vote for Drew because he's with Douglas? What Douglas has to do with this? You're voting for a man with the potential and the capacity, a young man who has the potential to become the prime minister, who has the potential to become the leader of the Labour Party. I mean, what comparisons they're making here? There's no comparison between Drew and Hamilton. Hamilton is obviously a man for the future. Going forward, this is what Drew.
Yeah.
For the future, going forward. You have seen Drew over the last years, over the last 5 years, how he has conducted himself. Completely different to what we have seen of Hamilton. Hamilton has allowed himself to be humiliated and demoralized by a nominated member, a senator. In this COVID situation, the Minister of Health
Out of the picture.
Out of the picture. I mean, how could you say you're not voting for Drew because he with Douglas, but you will vote for Hamilton? Really, I really don't see it. I don't understand it.
Well, I understand it. It's scapegoating. Okay? It's scapegoating. Remember, Alexis Nisbet told you. He told your wife, Jean. He told Dougie Watley. He told me. He told all of us individually and he told us together
Right.
that if we think Douglas is bad, Timothy is 10 times worse than Douglas.
How he put it to me, he said, what if I tell you
The same way he put it to me. That the man who we're trying to make prime minister.
it's 10 times worse than Douglas?
Exactly. 10 times worse than the one who we're trying to get rid of. And then he recanted his words and said he never said that.
Never said that.
He's lying.
Yep.
He told me that, he
Obviously.
told you that.
Yeah.
And he told us that
Yep. Yep.
several times
Yep.
in different ways.
Yep.
And wanted
Yeah.
to remove himself from it as a young family man. And said he don't want to get himself in nothing.
Yeah. He was
And then
prepared
something happened.
he was prepared to withdraw.
But we'll get to that when we reach number 3.
Yeah.
Now, in number 2,
Yeah.
you have Marcella against Jonelle.
To tell you the truth, really, I don't believe, this is my personal view. I think Jonelle has potential, but I don't believe, as I see Jonelle now, Jonelle is prepared. I think somebody is forcing this on Jonelle. I think Pam sees Jonelle as the heir apparent, and I think this is the time to get in because you have to take over from Sean. I think they're woefully disappointed in Sean leadership. And I think they want to replace Sean. They want to remove him. And so the best time to remove him is if Jonelle gets an opportunity to be in government. But I don't think Jonelle is ready. Jonelle, in my view, really maybe preparing himself. But I think Jonelle is more, interested in the social organization and so on, and living a life as a youngster. And nothing is wrong in that. Nothing's wrong in that. But I don't believe Jonelle is ready for government, for dealing with the issues that we have. Marcella, far more suited at this time. And for a time like this, I think Marcella's record is known. Her record in community development, in sports club, in sports organization, her training as a lawyer, as a teacher, and all of that. I think Marcella is well placed to do a stint in government. In fact, I think her 5 years in the government was good. The first 5 years that she was there, I think she did well in the ministry of. She was Minister of Carnival and Minister of Health and all that. I think she did a good job, an excellent job. Well, a good job in terms of what she was expected.
But you know what I find about Marcella? I find Marcella has matured over the last 5 years.
You see, opposition is good, Dwyer.
particularly over the last 2 years. She seems to have become far more focused, far more effective. And we know she's brave, and like, but it's her mother. These people are thoroughbred people, I mean, they're strong people. The whole family, they're strong people. And I've become increasing. I mean, me and Marcella go back a long way. I was a great fan when they were netball stars and so forth. One of the greatest netballers we ever produced, by the way.
Yeah,
a mother and so. And I think her experience and her personality and her being a female and a mother would lend greatly to the new government, particularly in this, not just health situation that we face, but the economic and social and psychological difficulties.
And I think her
that we're going to
maturity
experience.
and her soberness and so is good at this time. It's going to take somebody like her. I think she has the characteristics and the capabilities of adding, She's a wonderful...
and I agree with your earlier summary view of her. She's a capable person, and she listens. She's a listener. And I know, we've been politicians, we've been representatives, and you get questions and comments and views bombarding you from all quarters. And in between the comments and questions and views and views is the abuse. And I find she has gained in composure and stature and so forth. And is a worthy deputy leader of the party and would make a worthy deputy prime minister.
Absolutely.
First female deputy prime minister of the country.
Absolutely.
And I don't think Marcella wants to be around for too much longer.
No, not at all.
So again, you
Not
see
at
in the
all.
Labour Party, you see
Succession.
Three
planning.
more
Yeah,
experienced
yeah.
people, and the others are young, bright, dynamic, creative people. Now, on the Jonel side, I also agree with your characterization of him. I like him.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't think he's up to this, though.
No.
I really don't think
not
he's
right
up to
now.
this.
Well, he had the potential.
I talk about is.
Okay, yeah.
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
later.
Yeah,
I'm talking about is.
No.
But there is a matter that is of critical public importance, especially in this election.
Yep. That too.
That
Dwyer,
nobody-
that I agree.
Nobody
I agree,
can
Dwyer.
play ostrich with.
I agree.
You cannot stick your head in the ground and expose your rear end because you know what will happen to you if you do that. The public cannot turn a blind eye to this because this is
That's
important.
important, yeah.
And I'm referring to the case that the man Tanzania, Tobing Tanzil, brought against them. And the judgment of the case that came out in February of this year. Now, before I go to the case, a friend of mine was up in Dorset on Sunday, by Dorset Park area. And people there talking politics. This is politics time. And, you know, we talk politics anyway. And there was a lady there who was saying, Jonel for life. She's a Jonel supporter, which she has a right.
Of course.
Nothing wrong with that. So a man was there, asked her, well, what about the misappropriation of the man's money, the case? And the report I got was that the woman responded, it ain't we money they take.
So it's hard to take all of your money.
So the fellow apparently fairly responded, not yet. No, that's the story I got. But other than not yet, the question is, for me, not yet would mean, based on the facts of this case, the fact that the case has come out, is it a wise thing for the people of number 2, and by extension number 4, because the two of them are running,
Right.
to vote for these two gentlemen? Nothing to do with the gentlemen and their ability, but we have this to deal with, okay? It's like saying, look, I can put Sam Condor to run in the next Olympic for St. Kitts, order he foot break. Doesn't have a chance of getting it done, okay?
Well, I ain't got a chance with me 2 foot good.
Well,
now.
I know that. Well, if you run against me. So here's what I want to read, parts of 2 paragraphs in this judgment. The court, here's what Justice Thing said. And everybody, a lot of us have been to court as litigants, and you have judgments against. Some of us run for public office, some of us were in public office, some never do. And courts are not perfect places, and judges are not gods. Douglas said so years ago, and people got vexed with him. But here is a finding of the court, which, if you go to 100 lawyers, I think 90 to 99% of them will tell you this will not be overturned. And 90 to 99% of them will tell you that these two gentlemen will be seriously disciplined and maybe even disbarred from the practice of law,
This is
based
a
on the
serious
gentleman.
matter. This is a serious matter.
That's how serious it is.
It's a serious
And here's what the judge said. The court has given judgment, albeit a default judgment, that's default in filing a defense or whatever, and there's certain procedures. The court has given judgment in this matter that the defendants, that's the two candidates, breached their fiduciary duty and or their duty of trust owed to the claimant, that's the client, as the solicitor or escrow agents, and or they acted fraudulently in receiving and or misappropriated funds, in using and or failing to account for the sum of $460,000, which was transferred to the defendant's bank account and so forth. And he gave the number. The money was deposited to them in around 2014. And the man who sold this fellow the condominium only got his money maybe 5 years later. And that was because they promised to pay up the money several times. They never kept the promise. And then one check was written to pay towards the settlement of the thing. And the check was dishonored.
Yeah.
So this is what the judge said, and he went on in paragraph 51 to say, there is a finding by and a judgment of this court that the defendants, as attorneys at law, have misappropriated monies belonging to their former client, the claimant, and that they have also breached their fiduciary duties and duty of trust owed to the claimant. So the matter is referred to a disciplinary tribunal made up of 2 judges, and the next steps and so forth. Incidentally, that next hearing for this is due on the 10th of June.
10th of June?
10th of June. The first payment
That's
in
next
this case,
Wednesday.
the first payment of this case was made on the 5th of June 2014, if I recall correctly, which is election day tomorrow. So there's a little curiosity. 5th of June then, 5th of June now, 10th of June.
Right.
As I said, based on this, it is going to be a serious uphill struggle for them to avoid getting seriously disciplined or disbarred. And I'm not saying this with the intention of that happening or with the hope. This gives me no joy. But we have an election, and people are being asked to elect somebody to represent and serve them. If either of these two or both of these 2 gentlemen succeed, they'll be in a government made up of 2 lawyers who are probably, I won't say definitely, but probably facing serious disciplinary action or disbarment.
Yeah, that's not good.
What image does that send
That's not
to the
good.
institutional community, regionally and internationally? You have been the ambassador to the United Nations. What image does it send to investors? What image does it create of the country? Not because they're bad guys, but the judgment is the judgment. And I wish them well. I really do wish them well. And this is not personal.
Yeah,
And so the people, if these 2 gentlemen, in spite of all of this, and I believe that the Prime Minister timed the election to come before the case, before the next hearing. But whatever hearings you have, it is more because I think the application to appeal the judgment has already failed.
So they can't
It
appeal.
can't be overturned. Well, it is most unlikely, 99% against it being overturned. And I believe the decision was taken, and maybe upon advisement, to have the election before that happens. Now, if that is the case, if I am right in my guess, it means that Timothy's trying to pull a fast one on the people of the country.
Yep.
Get them in before all the information is in.
Yeah.
So the question is,
That's not right.
who would they be running for? The people who they say they love and want to serve, or their own interests? Are they running for the power, or are they running for the people?
Yeah.
And so it goes back to what he says. The lady says, John L. all the way. The fellow said, what about the misappropriation of funds? She said, it ain't our money. But it's bad enough to hurt her chances of making money. Because when you are in the leadership of the country, the world looks at you. They look at your country through you. You are the lens through which they see your country. And you know the first thing investors do? They do due diligence on the country, check out the leaders and so forth. So this is a very serious matter. And even if Marcella was not part of the team that has, to me, and I heard you say it on the radio, and I agree with you, one of the best manifestos I've seen, not just in looks, but in content.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about looks. I'm talking about content. In the last 50 years in this country.
Yeah.
One of the best
Yep, I
in the
agree.
last 50 years in this
I
country.
agree.
She has a track record. She has the experience and the maturity.
Yep.
She has the administrative and legislative
And institutional.
and institutional knowledge.
Yeah.
And she is part of a team that made mistakes and have confessed and have sought forgiveness. So they are on a trajectory of confession, and their plans are high-tech, modernizing the economy, modernizing the society and so forth, in tune with the needs that we have in order to become a successful little nation in quick time, because these are going to be the hardest months and years that we face in maybe the last 100 years.
Yeah, definitely.
I said, so even without this nice manifesto, and even without Marcella having her qualities and being part of the team that she's being part of, this court case is enough to give the voters pause and say, well, if you are going to vote for power, to run for power, for you to have power, rather than the people having power, because of this case, and you are exposing us to the embarrassment, then we are going to protect you from embarrassing yourself and your family. And more importantly, we're going to protect ourselves and our country from getting the embarrassment, so we're not going to vote for you. And although there are many other reasons, this reason is enough, would be enough for me not to vote for Jonelle and not to vote for Lindsay. Nothing personal. So we could go on to number 3 now.
Yeah. No, that's
You did
2.
1, 2, and 8.
No, so we
you're
got to
going
7.
okay, then,
We got
7.
7. We got
Okay.
7. In my view, Leonato is one of the best young candidates I've seen on the scene in recent times. I don't think he will beat Timothy Harris. But in terms of, in fact, when he was announced, I didn't know him. But his presence, he has presence. He has style. He communicates
charisma.
well, charisma. And I think he has a wonderful
All of those young fellas in Labour have charisma.
Yeah. So I think he's a good prospect for the future. For the future, I think he's a good politician. He's a good candidate, and I expect a lot of him in the future.
Well, let me tell you something. If the PAM people in number 7 realize the disrespect that has been meted out to their leader, Sean, who wanted and was determined to be Minister of Finance, and Tim decided Sean ain't man enough for that job. He can't get it. Although Sean brought the most seats to the table. He brought the most seats to the table.
I mean, Sean should. I mean, I'm just surprised that Pam is taking the line down.
Well,
I mean, you bring 4 seats to the table and you have no authority in terms of
because Patty's is not really a PAM.
No, but 4
and the PAM people in Newtown will tell him so tomorrow, because they're going to vote.
Because you should have some authority, some bargaining power, some negotiating power to say, look, what it is we would like.
He has very little, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean,
very little.
Really disappointing.
So what I'm saying, Sam, is that the people in number 7, the PAM people, who are the ones that propelled Timothy to a big win. Not that he didn't have his own support, because, do not be surprised if Natta puts up a good fight. If the PAM people take it to heart, the disrespect that has been meted out to their leaders, and to them in turn, and they're being used and abused, because if Timothy has his way, he will swallow PAM and spit them out. If he has his way, there'll be no PAM in the next 10 years. And he is already...
That's a long time.
Yeah, he's already fooling a lot of them. So you go from 7 now to 3.
Yeah. So there's no competition there, really, honestly. I mean, Akila is my relative, she's Jean's niece, and so I love her. She's a nice girl, but there's really no comparison. And look, I mean, Akila was put there out of spite.
Yeah.
And malice and bad-mindedness. That was no good intention. That had nothing to do with the constituency or the country or anything. It was Timothy Harris wants to have his own way and wants to see the back of Sam Condor and anybody related to Sam Condor. The Team Unity movement organization in West Bastia decided that Samuel Duggins was the person who was earmarked between PAM and PLP. Both organizations decided that Samuel is the caretaker. Samuel and I will work with him, up to the next election, and Samuel will be the candidate. Timothy unilaterally remove Samuel. Remove Samuel, and just place Aquila there. In fact, when the position of senator became vacant in the House after the resignation of the Speaker, Franklin Brand, and the Deputy Speaker became the Speaker, and there was that vacancy, I wrote to Timothy. I didn't get a reply up to now, recommending that Samuel be the senator to sort of prepare him, expose him, blood him, and so on. Like with the Jacinth when we wanted her to run.
Yes.
Yeah. We didn't hear none of that. But Aquila was put there, without any discussion with anybody. After the Team Unity organization in West Bassett decided that, just unilaterally put in Aquila for his own personal reasons. He want to control and manipulate the whole situation. And so Aquila is not prepared, she's not ready, she's not the best person to do it, and Samuel is eminently more qualified. Not Samuel, but Conwys. Eminently qualified to take over the seat.
Okay, so go to 6 now then.
No, we were 3 and 6, yeah. 6, well, I don't think 6 need any discussion, do I?
Okay, go to 4 then.
Yeah, 4. Only to say that in 6, that's just filling, really. And Douglas, like I say, now Douglas is short-term transitioning to a new leadership and so on, and he's not going to be there for a long time.
This is his last election.
Last election. Win, lose or draw, he's gone. But he's there to transition into new leadership for the Labour Party and for the government and so on, and he's just there to see the guys through. I don't think is a serious contender. I mean, number 6 is the thing. We got to 4. 4, all the things you said about Jonel, about the situation with Jonel, not Jonel personally.
And
the case applies to Lindsay. And while I like Lindsay, over the 5 years we have become really good friends. I really like Lindsay. But this is a matter we are talking about, the good governance. So, Steve Rensford, I don't expect Steve Rensford to be there for long. His age and all of that. But if Labour is elected to
Before you go to Steve Rensford, you mentioned in Lindsay, and it's something that the public should know. Over the last couple of weeks during this election, complaints have been coming from Sean, from Eugene, and from Lindsay. And the PAM supporters need to know this, that they're not getting enough help and money from the leader, from Tim, complaining about money, that they're not getting enough money from the leader. Again, the leader of the biggest bloc in the government when they formed the government, a man who was the former leader, and Lindsey Grant spent a lot of his own money trying to help PAM win elections. He went into his pocket, went into great debt. I happen to know that.
Yeah, I know that.
Great debt.
I'm aware of that.
Okay.
I'm aware of that.
That does not erase the fact of what we're talking about with the case. They are complaining that they're not getting enough money from Timothy to conduct the campaigns in their constituencies to a level that is satisfactory to them and the people working around them. And you expect PAM voters in places like number 1 and number 8 and number 2 and all of the constituencies to go and rally around people who want to get into government with Tim, for Tim to continue taking advantage of their leaders. This election was about Timothy Harris getting power.
Absolutely.
It wasn't
Absolutely.
about PAM
Absolutely.
or anything. It was about Timothy Harris getting power.
That's the bottom line. Absolute, Dwyer. That was the whole idea.
Remember,
of
he
this
did
thing.
not resign
Absolutely.
from Douglas's cabinet, you know. He was hoping that because you know that he spoke to Douglas about putting him in your position and relegating you so that he would be number 2 in line. You know that. He went to Douglas. So this election was about getting him to power. And remember when he said none of his colleagues could hold a candle of correction to him. When Jonel went to Nevis on some professional thing I think, to do with the airport. Okay? And he dealt with the Nevis government because I think the Nevis government or the client, the developer, had engaged Powell's and Grant's firm. People, some of Timothy's tongue waggers on Facebook and so were saying that he went to conspire with Mark and those people against him, and they launched a vicious attack. And look at Timothy's people on Facebook and social media, launching vicious attacks on every one of his colleagues. And then he publicly saying none of them can hold a candle of correction to him. Are you going to tell me people who have palm fires burning in their souls and who have pride and a sense of dignity about palm could go and vote even for palm candidates who are looking to get into a government to be dominated by the same man who is trying to destroy and debase them and degrade them? It is an exercise in the yielding of their own dignity and self-respect. It's all about Timothy Harris.
Absolutely. All about Timothy Harris.
Now, Rensford, in my opinion, well, let me ask you. You tell me about Rensford.
Well, like I was saying, that if the Labour Party wins and Rensford is part of the government, I believe Rensford will make his constituency the envy of the rest of the country. Rensford has what it takes. He has the experience. I don't know where he's going to do, whether he'll be in agriculture or whatever. But Rensford has he has tremendous experience coming out of Cairo and NACO, and then the experience as the deputy director of Social Security over the years and so on. Rensford is eminently qualified. And his community work in terms of the MI Festival, in terms of the football and cricket leagues and so on in that area, Rensford is an excellent community man. His commercial activities and so on, excellently
You know what I
qualified.
like about Rensford? I am not bedazzled by a lot of style cutting. Okay? I mean, you've seen it as a football player. You see some fellas and the thing, and they were hooking and all kind of style like that. You put them on a field with 10 other players,
No advancement.
they can't do nothing, they can't function. Rensford is a solid fella, a thinker. The things he says about the constituency, he has a plan.
He
has a plan.
That's why I tell you,
And
he will make the constituency the envy of the rest of the country.
And he will give it a
His best
sense
shot.
of an injection of inspiration and energy and opportunity that it has not had.
Absolutely.
It has not really had
I agree
under
with that.
Lindsay.
I agree with that 100%.
And
I agree
so
with
when
that
people, you hear
100%.
people say, well, when he talk, he don't be exciting. Well, listen to what the man is saying. Listen to what he's saying. Okay? Because it is the empty barrels who make the most noise, and he don't make noise. On top of that, I didn't even know the man is a black belt in karate.
I didn't know that. First time I'm hearing that.
Well, I heard that the other night, that he's a karate man. Make it even worse because them quiet people, you know, they say easy dog bite hard. So he's a confident, quiet man. He don't have to boast. And I know a lot of the Rensfords. I know the Rensford family. Most of them are like that. All of them that I know are like that. Trevor and all the others.
I remember
I like
Trevor-
that. Yeah, the
Trevor-
cricketer and so.
uh,
Play good football too.
player,
Yeah.
I remember Trevor.
Great athlete.
Yep,
And
excellent athlete.
The thing about Steve Rensford is that, for me, he is part of the experience side of the Labour team.
At balance.
And Steve is not looking to be running 2, 3, 4, 10 terms.
No, but you're joking. Steve has to finish just now.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you see the transition
Yeah.
taking place.
Yeah.
Whereas on the other side, Tim is telling them, I will take 2 terms as Prime Minister, then you will take 2 terms,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
will take 2 terms,
Yeah.
as if they're going to be in power for 30 years.
Yeah.
And he will decide who will be second.
Yeah.
And so, as I said, it's all about him. So
Yeah.
I see in Rensford a solid candidate
Yep,
who has
absolutely.
the ability to galvanize that constituency, Pam and Labour.
I agree.
And
I agree.
an opportunity to win the seat.
I agree.
Do
I
you
agree.
think so
I
too?
agree. I agree.
And that is a marginal seat to begin with.
Yep. That has always been a marginal seat. Always been, yeah.
Let's go on to number 5. That's the last one left.
Yeah. Number 5, Kenny Douglas is an excellent candidate. it's Kenny Douglas. I mean, the guy he's a natural.
He's a natural.
He is a natural.
He loves it.
He's a natural. I mean, far superior to Sean as a community man. There's no comparison.
No.
I mean, in every area, in sports generally, and has done excellent work in sporting thing, in coaching and molding and training. I mean, he's one of the best we have in the country. And as a teacher, you know, he has been involved. And in the community generally, I mean, if you go down there and you speak to anybody, whatever political, religious, social persuasion, they will tell you about Kenny Douglas. And so Kenny Douglas is just the best candidate in my view.
What about Sean?
Sean, I think Sean has been a disappointment, a real disappointment. I haven't seen him living up. That's why Pam is ready to change him. I've seen him living up to the position of Deputy Prime Minister and I mean, let me tell you something that happened and which I think I mentioned already, but people which I took really serious. When we were having these difficulties with Tim, PLP and so on, like the appointment of the senator, the allocation of houses and so on in the constituency and so on. And I went to Sean. I said, Sean, you know, I really don't understand what's happening. I want you to know, as the Deputy Prime Minister, as one of the leaders in the leader of PAM, who is the biggest partner in the coalition, that these things are not right, and I write them to you. He said, Sam, boy, that's PLP business. I said, you serious, Sean? He said, yeah, that's PLP business. I'm not getting into that. I couldn't believe making
What was the money being collected for PLP?
Which money?
During the election, the last time. The money that was being collected for the election. I talked about the election.
No. It was the team unity.
Well, was those things are Sean's and those people's business too? But
tell
remember
you,
how that got shut down without them putting up a fight?
Without anything.
Without
and
them
so
putting up a fight.
Sean has not lived up to the expectation of what he was supposed to be. A leader in the team unity, the leader of the biggest partner.
A bright young man.
He has really been disappointing. Yeah. Apart from the cannibals and the things like that, the CPL and so on. Sean has not shown any really serious interest in terms of, getting involved in the leadership of the country and so on. In fact, look at this current situation, Dwyer, with the students. Our students who get stranded
overseas.
I mean, Sean has not shown any leadership in
He's not fought for them. Timothy has said he's not bringing them home.
Yeah. Sean has really been a disappointment.
The Labour fellows said they'll bring them home.
Yeah, disappointing.
And these people have families here. They're out there stranded, a lot of them.
Yeah, so hands up.
We have a few minutes left.
I will vote for Kenny.
And Kenny's a very, very lovable guy. Got a lot of chat. Nice chat.
He's confident.
Very nice.
And so on.
I've known Kenny and Nato since they were small in the Youth Instructional Cricket League.
Kenny and who?
Nato.
Nato? Okay.
Yeah.
I
think Nato has a twin brother. Somebody who looked very much like him, if I remember correctly. Two of them used to play cricket. And Kenny was the best young sportsman in Sandy Point.
I remember Kenny. I remember Kenny Douglas.
This thing all being about Tim, I have to talk about the observers, Sam. As we wind up.
Yep. That's important.
Because the OAS were willing to put in observers. I believe all of this thing with the state of emergency and the dating of the election before the case with these guys, all of these things were calculated and deliberate. They did not happen coincidentally. And he was offered observers, and he declined. And I am told that pressure was mounted on him very recently, telling him, you have to have observers. And this is why we are told observers are either on the island now or coming in. But let's be frank, he knows what good they can do here now, 2 days before the election.
That's
And
what the
then
12th of-
if they're not going into quarantine, it means they're going to have to go around in the PPE or whatever you call the outfits, which is going to have a kind of odd look. They're going to look like space people going around
Uncomfortable.
at the polling stations.
Yeah.
It may make people uncomfortable. It may, but there's no need to, because I don't want to scare people. But and it is, the thing is totally avoidable. And again, the state of emergency first for 12 months and then for 6, and something that could have been done under the Public Health Act and other related legislations, rather than this lockdown of the country, this act of suppression and extreme muscularity, so that he could have his way and his sway and have an election effectively without observers. And then call on the local stakeholders, and they said, we don't do it on our own, we can't do it on our own. So where is the objective eye? So these observers coming today, you think they're going to see the foolishness that may have happened here or there 3 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago? And it's like all about him preserving himself in power.
Yep.
A power over Sean,
That is what.
power
it is
over
about.
Lindsay,
That is what it is
power
about.
over Jonelle, power over Eugene, not power over Patches, because
okay.
Patches does as he likes. Patches does as he likes. And this is one of the reasons that the PAM people want to see Patches lose, because he's causing too much problems inside there. And that is why so many PAM people will vote against him tomorrow. I don't know what the final count will be, but I could tell you a number of PAM people will not vote for him, or will not vote, period. Because they cannot, if they really want to defend PAM and see PAM survive the next 5 to 10 years, now is the time to defend PAM.
Yep.
Because you're putting PAM people in there, they're weak in there, and they're being devoured and bullied by 2 persons, Timothy and Sam. I said Sam. Timothy and, not Sam, Timothy and Patches. And sometimes you have to wheel and come again, like the Labour Party has had to do in the last election, wheel and come again. And maybe Pam needs to wheel and come again, get some fresh candidates, rebuild, look at their leadership situation, because you must have a leader who could stand up to anybody. And if Sean cannot stand up to Tim, he definitely can't stand up to Douglas. Because Douglas is a stronger leader than Tim. He's braver, he's more creative, he is better under pressure. And remember, Tim served under him for 18 years. And Tim did not resign. Douglas fired Tim. And a lot of the criticisms that he has hurled against the Douglas administration, which I did too, and admitted I was part of the administration.
Yep.
But I left in 2008. He stayed on until he was fired in 2013. And it is because you decided to resign that he became the prime minister. And then they send you out in the wilderness. Little did they know that they were enriching you and giving the country an opportunity to benefit from your experience and your exposure out there. So see, when you set out to do a man bad, sometimes you do a country good.
And what people mean for evil, God mean for good.
So this election for me is all about Timothy Harris trying to maintain a stranglehold, because all of this state of emergency and all this stuff, over muscular, wanting to be in control and have people on lockdown. I'm not saying we don't need curfew and restrictions, but excessive, and then bringing in out of pressure the observers at the very last minute. I think we're out of time, so let's wrap up. You Sam, you first.
Just let me say, Dwyer, that this election is about the future of our nation. What kind of people we would like it to be. What kind of people we would like to be. What kind of country we would like to live in. what kind of legacy we wish to leave for the next generation. This is about looking forward, not looking backward. And if the people believe, as I do, that this is what this watershed election is all about, then we cannot sit this one out. It isn't just staying home or staying away. If you decide to vote as you should, then your vote must not be as a result of frivolous reasoning, selfish considerations, Jewish, or some quid pro quo bribe, or people are educated and fully capable of thinking for themselves, and so expect that their decisions will be carefully and thoroughly thought through, always with the future of the nation and its children foremost in its mind. I hope that is what this election will be about, and I pray God will guide us and bless us and help us to come out better, enriched, and enlightened because of this exercise and this process, and we will be a better people, a better nation as a result.
And tomorrow, folks, don't mope, vote. Don't be intimidated, vote. You're not going to look for any war. You're going to express your fundamental right and you discharge your responsibility as a citizen to choose the government of your choice. Go early, take your time, do the right thing, and vote. Sam has endorsed the Labour Party, as have I. We voted against them and campaigned against them the last time. We acted on principle, we're acting on principle now. The important thing is what you do now. You look in the past to understand the perspective. You look in the future to gain experiences that you will again look in the past when you reach there. All of these acts to intimidate and to make you hysterical and all of these things and to demoralize you, don't let them work on you. Go and vote for your candidate. And we have told you who we support in. Read the Labour Party manifesto. Farmers, young people, old people, professionals, it's all there. It is all there, and it is a real stimulus package. The other one has a lot of BS in it. More BS than substance. And I want to thank you all for listening. And remember, at the end of it, let's be peaceful. And somebody will win, but make sure nobody loses. The country is what must win. The people must win at the end of an election. No bitterness, no rancor, no foolishness on appointing boards and friend and all this stuff. Let's run our country clean, man. Thank you all, and God bless.
Lord, hear my voice, hear my cry, my prayer. Lord, I bow before your throne. To you I give glory and thanks.
WINFM provides an avenue for responsible, open public discourse on issues of public concern without being controlled by any political party, organization, or individual. Our aim is to provide free expression within the law by civil society, private individuals, and political parties in opposition as well as in government. Although WINFM recognizes and holds dearly the right to free speech, we also hold dearly the concomitant right for a person to maintain his or her reputation. The comments, views, and opinions expressed by the hosts, presenters, and other participants by way of radio or social media with respect to this program are solely their opinion and do not reflect the opinions of WINFM 98.9 or its operating company staff.